Hi, it's me, Shakti Sundari, and I'm feeling really called to speak today, to share a little bit today around the theme of loving the hell out of one another. So I'm posting this on the Divine Union page that I've created together with my beloved, Prem Prashad. And I've been very conscious that we haven't been posting that much lately. We've been very occupied with our busy lives and our co-creation and our work, and we've also been apart from one another for 5 weeks. And, you know, as I have come back to the UK and met all my friends or been in contact with people on Facebook, and even before that, I've been very aware of how so many people have been touched and inspired by our love. And I love that because I truly feel that one purpose that we have together in our union is to inspire many people through walking this path of divine union together, and to touch others with the love that we share and radiate. So that is most certainly a huge part for me of why I feel that we have been brought together. And at the same time, I'm also aware that it's very easy for people to look at us or me and idealize or fantasize or romanticize the nature of this union and or the nature of relating and relationship. I know that from many of the pictures and the sharings that I have posted on social media that it really does look that way, that, you know, there is this beautiful divine love. We're living together in paradise. It's sunny every day. There's this adoration and devotion between us. And again, that is all true. And what I'm also very keen to share and make known is that there is more to this. There is a shadow aspect to this, as there is in all of us and as there is in all of relating. So alongside this beautiful union, this opening, this love, this radiance, passion, the co-creation, the being in the flow with the divine, which we most certainly are a lot of the time, we have triggered the fuck out of each other many times already. We have, I have experienced anger on a level I never knew possible within myself. I have shouted and screamed at Prem. I have hated his fucking guts on occasions. I have stormed out of a room. I have slammed things down. I have felt deeply hurt. And, you know, many other wound-based, trigger-based reactions have occurred in my being since our union. And I'm really keen for people to know that and understand that this is also a crucial part of any relationship, but particularly a relationship that is set up with the intention of being true and conscious. And for myself, that is certainly all that I want. I'm not interested in any kind of relating which takes me into the unconscious realms, which is not aligned with truth. Really for me, truth comes first and foremost, and awakening beyond anything. And as I've been reflecting on this and recently discussing with some dear friends of mine, which is always so wonderful because, of course, in discussion we learn, we realize, we appreciate. One of my friends, Dakini Kamaya, said this to me today, and I love this. choosing to awaken, which I do, and be in relationship, which I do, is the most catalytic experience possible. So choosing to awaken and be in relationship is the most catalytic experience possible. And I would agree. So I guess what I want to convey in this title and what I'm talking about in terms of loving the hell out of one another is that every single one of us has a shadow. Every single one of us has wounding. Every single one of us has aspects that we're unconscious of. And for me, and in everything that I have lived, experienced, studied, read about relating, conscious relating, through Tantra, through study, what happens when we are in a love relationship is that all of those parts of ourselves suddenly become made known. So we might go through that honeymoon phase where everything's wonderful, and then at a certain point, because we're in the field of love and we're opening, our shit comes up. However evolved we may think we are, however awakened we may think we are, however spiritual we may think we are, our shit will come up. This is what happens. This is natural. It's human. It happens to everybody. And if you think it's not happening to you and you think you're not doing it, I would suggest very strongly that you're in denial, big time. In fact, this is in a way what is supposed to happen. This is like the natural course, but it's what we choose to do at that point when our shit comes up that makes all the difference. Because there we have an opportunity for spiritual soul growth. I mean, that's really the point for me. Once again, the point of being in relationship is to awaken. It's for my soul to grow. It's for me to remember my true essence as love. And so when I am in love, I then will be confronted with everything in myself that is not love. I will be shown that. It will be mirrored to me. I will begin to have feelings in my being, emotions, reactions, judgments that I don't necessarily feel very comfortable having, but they are showing me areas of myself where I'm still not integrated whole in love, embracing my fullness or accepting aspects of myself. So this is all known. This is all known. And really, the purpose of this relating in consciousness is for us to stay the course and love the hell out of one another. The hell being those parts, I don't believe in some Dante-esque place that we're going to go to upon death where we're all going to burn in a fire. Hell, in my definition, is the parts of our mind that limit us, that control us unconsciously, the parts of ourselves that we've been afraid to look at, and the parts of our mind and our being that lock us into a conditioned response to life and to another, rather than expanding us into the truth of who we are, which is pure love and pure consciousness. But so often we're not aware of that and we forget it. So if we choose to stay in relating when the shit comes up, then we're going into that phase of loving the hell out of one another. We take responsibility for our own shit. We own it. We process it. We walk with it. We love it. We embrace it. We do whatever is necessary when we are shown our shit, simply through the very natural process of being in relationship with another. And we can support one another in that. We can love the other. We can get to the point where we see the other and we say, hey, you know what? I see your shit and it's okay. It's not okay for you to treat me like this, but I see your shit and I love you. I love you unconditionally. I love you regardless. I'm going to be here. I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to stay committed to this. I will hold my boundaries. I will honor my truth. And I can love you from this place fully because I recognize that you are also me. You're not the same as me, you're different from me, and part of my learning to be love is to recognize and love the difference in you. not the sameness, the difference, and to fully accept that and not try to change you or make you like me or make you like how I want you to be, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to read a couple of things actually from a few teachers of authentic conscious relationship that have really, really inspired me. And so here is, they're not in any particular order really, but here's the first one. And this is from an incredible book called Getting the Love That You Want, a guide for couples, and it's by Harville Hendrix. He created the Imago therapy. So just going to read one really short quote from this. Becoming conscious. Seldom or never does a marriage develop into an individual relationship smoothly without crisis. There is no birth of consciousness without pain. And that's a quote from Carl Jung. Harville Hendrix himself says, our unconscious drive to repair the emotional damage of childhood is what allows us to realize our spiritual potential as human beings, to become complete and loving people capable of nurturing others. And even though our projections and transferences may temporarily blind us to our partner's reality, they're also what binds us to them, setting up the preconditions for future growth. So we come in with these woundings and these trigger points from our childhood and our background and our past relationships. We all do. Once again, if you think you don't, you're kidding yourself. We all have this. And through relationship, as we become conscious of it and as we courageously face this, heal it, transform it, and take responsibility and pull back our projections and our transferences, we begin to become more whole. We begin to grow on a soul and spiritual level to our full potential. And that is what makes it so exciting. Again, I'm going to read to you from another amazing book, Conscious Loving. This is by Gay Hendricks and Kathleen Hendricks. It's like a wonderful basic Bible on conscious relating. So again, you know, every teacher, therapist, conscious relationship expert, tantric teacher I know will tell you this. It's nothing new, but we can never hear it enough. Love brings our issues to the surface. It's because of the closeness and the possibility of love in relationship that issues emerge. Many of us blame our relationship problems on a lack of love, but it's actually the love in the relationship that has brought forth the issues. A close relationship is a powerful light force, and like any strong light, it casts a large shadow. When you stand in the light of close relationship, you must learn to deal with the shadow. So, what happens? So you get close to someone. Eventually, two things happen. On your part, feelings and old patterns emerge. All human beings have feelings and patterns. So again, if you think you haven't, you have. The other person's feelings and patterns also emerge. Think of you and another person standing in the light of the sun. You have yourselves and you have the two shadows cast where each of you block the light. There is the relationship between the two shadows. The shadow is the part of us we do not know about. It is the hidden repository of all our old feelings and patterns. You come into relationship bringing a shadow with you, as does the other person. And if you and the other person do not look into what these shadows contain, your relationship will be between two shadows instead of the two of you as real people. At the moment of emergence, when old feelings and kick into gear, you briefly have a moment to take effective action. If you let it slides back into the shadow, into codependence. What's the action you need to take? So simple, so powerful, so profound that there has been a centuries-old conspiracy against it. The only effective action is to see and say the truth. Does that sound easy? It is, but only once you have the courage to do it a few hundred times. What do we typically do? We withhold, we withdraw, and we project. Okay, that's not going to work. So we have to learn tools. for how to recognize our shit, for how to recognize that we're withdrawing, withholding, or blaming the other. When you do this and you're blaming the other for what's going on, you're not taking responsibility. Any conscious relationship, you take 100% responsibility for what is happening. And also notice, as I'm pointing the finger at the other, there are 3 fingers pointing back at me. So most often when you're blaming someone for something, listen to what you're saying and then take those words and have the courage and the honesty to look at them and inquire as to how you are those things that you are accusing or blaming the other for or of. More often than not, when we're doing this, the words that are coming out of our mouth are actually all about us. Nothing to do with the other. They have triggered something in us, but what we're accusing, blaming the other for is actually a part of ourselves that we are in denial about. To be in a conscious relationship, we have to have the honesty with ourselves and the courage to look at that. So, another amazing book, The Future of Love by Daphne Rose Kingma. The stages of an intimate relationship. Just going to summarize these really quickly. Number 1, romance, moonlight, and red roses. Know that one? Yep. Number 2, commitment, pledge. Yep. Crisis. Number 3, a crack in the vase. Uh-oh, things begin to go a bit dodgy. The shit's coming up. 4, the ordeal, the power struggle. I know that one too. Your issues come up. You begin to battle. You begin to lock horns. Your egos begin to want to fight for who's right and who's wrong, who knows better, whose needs aren't being met, etc., etc., etc. The power struggle. 5, chaos, loss of control. If you're able to stick with it at this point and you haven't run away and you haven't withdrawn, you haven't blamed the other, which is what happens a lot of the time, surrender, the awakening. Then we get to transformation. Number 7, true love. Yes. Daphne Rose Kingma talks about the power of the soul in intimate relationships, and that's all I'm interested in. My soul is on this journey. My soul wants to awaken, to grow, to expand, to remember truth in union with the divine. And I'm doing that at the moment with Prem. We're doing that together. The soul, says Daphne Rose Kingma, is insisting that we become ourselves fully. Our soul keeps putting our emotional work before us, asking us to complete it so we can start to experience ourselves as the spiritual beings we are. The soul is relentless. It keeps moving us in the direction of resolving our psychological issues, because these are the issues that keep us attached to the personality's concerns and thereby separated from our true spiritual nature, our divinity. The more we face our emotional issues, the less they have a hold on us. The less they have a hold on us, the more we are able to move towards our spiritual awareness. We are here to continually refine and purify ourselves like a snake casting off its skins until we are peeled down to our essential spiritual essence. So, the pain, the feeling, the facing of our emotional issues, of all that we deny in ourselves, that we fear is bad. Unless we face this, we will continue to repeat the same old patterns again and again and again. We need the courage, the honesty, the truth, the mutual support to face this. And I assure you, because I have done this many, many times myself, it's actually so much easier to face it than to deny it, because to deny it just feels so yucky and out of alignment, and the shit just comes back anyway. So you might as well deal with it. As Daphne Rose Kingma says, the personality, kind of our ego, draws a small circle and from within its self-focused circumference keeps trying to have all its needs met, becoming frustrated and self-righteous. Oh, I do that. Yep, when they're not. The soul, however, draws a huge circle that includes everything and everyone. A circle with a circumference so huge that it embraces all opposites. The personality blames, judges, tosses aside, casts out, and plays the victim. Recognize some of those? While the soul says, there's a bigger agenda here, a larger frame, an infinitely more complex picture. Stand back and behold it all. See how every one of the pieces fit. We go in and out, don't we? We go in and out from the small personality level to the expanded place of infinite awareness. And of course, we don't live in that place all the time, but if we're on the path of awakening and spiritual growth, then our intention is to be able to merge heaven and earth, to bring those two together so that we are living more and more constantly in alignment between above and below, masculine and feminine within the heart. And that's what we're constantly striving for. None of us is perfectly there. We're doing our best. And once again, just to remind you of the opening quote, choosing to awaken and be in a relationship is the most catalytic experience possible. So I'm going to finish with a couple of quotes from an amazing article called Intimate Relationship as a Spiritual Crucible. This was written by John Wellwood, who's a psychotherapist and a student of Tibetan Buddhism. It was written in 2008. Intimate relationship as a spiritual crucible. So, he talks about the potential of relationship. The alchemy generated between two people furthers a larger alchemy within them. The opportunity here is to join and integrate the twin poles of human existence. Heaven, the vast space of perfect, unconditional openness, and earth, our imperfect, limited human form, shaped by worldly causes and conditions. He goes on to talk about relationship as a charnel ground. Now that's a pretty strong image. Charnel ground is where we take dead bodies, we cut them up, we let them decompose, right? So it's dark, scary, death, we're dying. Many of us have a cartoon-like notion of relational bliss, that it should provide steady state of security or solace. We imagine that finding the right person means we won't have to deal with loneliness, disappointment, despair, terror, or disintegration. Yet anyone who's been married for a long time has some knowledge of the charnel ground of relationship. So once again, like every teacher on this area, relationship brings up the shit. It really does. And it brings up all the shit we've been trying to avoid and pretend isn't there. As one of these Tibetan teachers, Trungpa Rinpoche, says, large areas of our life have been devoted to trying to avoid discovering our own experience. But building the mandala of awakening actually happens on the charnel ground. Once again, loving the hell out of one another. The shit comes up, we go into that dark zone if we're courageous, honest, willing, wanting to awaken. Out of the raw material, you break down, you grow, you absorb. You work yourself from inside out. And that nothingness allows God to come in. If you allow yourself to process and refine the raw material of your ego, your prejudices, your limitations, you can open consciously. Otherwise, you will never come to anything that represents your true self. The only thing that can create an openness inside you is your ability to see more of yourself, not the other, yourself, as you work every day to open deeper and say, fine, I'm short-tempered. Fine, I'm aggressive. Fine, I'm greedy. Fine, I'm self-centered. Once you recognize you are these things, you'll finally be able to take a breath and allow these things to open. Again, quoting from this amazing paper on intimate relationship as a spiritual crucible. We can easily leave a relationship. So, Prem and I have called this divine union, and I truly believe this is a divine union. However, we have to be really careful not to start doing spiritual bypassing, not to start using all these grand spiritual, sacred, awakened, conscious, all these terms without really being it. And actually being that requires us to go right down into the dirty, muddy, murky depths and shits. It's not all about staying up here in some transcendent state and pretending that we're awakened when we're not, because we're not. We're just not. So we have to be careful of the tendency to spiritually bypass and say, oh, love and light, oh, I'm fine, oh, I've let this one go. Yeah, right. Have you really? As he quotes here, a man who thinks he has a spiritual life is really an idiot. It's just a bit of a wake-up call, and I kind of like that, because we can get a little bit there can be a tendency to kind of spiritually bypass in all of us. Sooner or later, though, relationship brings us to our knees, forcing us to confront the raw and rugged mess of our mental and emotional life. This is the meaning of the charnel ground. We have to be willing to come apart at the seams, to be dismantled, to let go our old ego structures, fall apart, before we can begin to embody the sparks of the essential perfection at the core of our nature. To evolve spiritually, we have to allow these unworked, hidden, messy parts of ourselves come to the surface. It's not that the strategic controlling ego is something bad or some unnecessary mistake. Rather, it provides the indispensable grist that makes our chemical transformation possible. No one wants to be dismantled, right? So there are two main ways people try to abort the process. They run away or they spiritually bypass. Look, the fact is, a deep, intimate connection brings up all our wounds from the past. That's why so many people try to avoid it. But avoidance, running away, spiritually bypassing, blaming, projecting, transference, all of that shit, this keeps the wounding unconscious, causing it to emerge as compulsive, shadowy behavior, or it dries up the passion and juice in the relationship. As soon as you go unconscious, as soon as you become codependent, as soon as you don't speak the truth, the juice in your relationship will dry up. You know, I've experienced this for years. I've known this for years. I've been practicing it for years, but I see it like in my union with Prem now. You know, things happen, I get triggered, I have a reaction, I have a response, and I feel it. And if I hold on to it, if I don't speak it, even though there's fear in speaking it, absolutely there's fear. There's fear of his reaction, there's fear of his response, there's fear of judgment, there's fear of so many things. But I just know if I don't speak the truth, if I don't share the truth of what's happening for me in that moment, the realness is gone. The intimacy is gone, because if we're not speaking our truth to one another, there is no intimacy. If I'm not sharing what is actually happening for me, there is no intimacy. The relationship dries up and becomes dead. I don't want that. I want truth, aliveness, juice, growth, expansion. I want to be challenged. I want to see my shadow. I want to become more love, more whole, more beautifully aware and awakened. I want to be able to radiate more love and be filled with more divinity. And I can only do that if I empty myself out of all that is not love. And Prem is my very best mirror in this moment for showing me all that is not love in myself. And I thank him for that. And I thank the divine for bringing us together. Intimate personal connecting cannot evolve unless the old love wounds that block it are faced, acknowledged, and freed up. As wonderful as moments of being to being union can be, the alchemical play of joining heaven and earth in a relationship involves a more subtle and beautiful dance, not losing our two-ness in the oneness, while not losing our oneness in the two-ness. For love can only heal what presents itself to be healed. If our woundedness remains hidden, it cannot be healed. The best in us cannot come out unless the worst comes out as well. Again, loving the hell out of each other. I just want to read this again. You know, when we finally find someone we really love, all the difficult things start to emerge. Don't be surprised if they do. It's a good sign, not a bad sign. Fear, distrust, unlove, disillusion, resentment, blame, confusion. This is a form of love's grace. It brings our wounds and our defenses forward into the light. Yes, for love can only heal what presents itself to be healed. If our woundedness remains hidden, it cannot be healed. The best in us cannot come out unless the worst comes out as well. So stop all this pretending to be beautiful and perfect and airy-fairy and good, you know. Let's just be real. Let's just be real. So again, as this guy says, so instead of constructing a fancy hotel in the charnel ground, we must be willing to come down and relate to the mess on the ground. We need to regard the wounded heart as a place of spiritual practice. The kind of practice means engaging with our fears and our vulnerabilities in a deliberate, conscious way. And again, this is also important. It doesn't mean that we go down to the shit and we behave like the shit. I mean, to the best of our ability anyway. This is where our yogic training comes into play. The only way to be free of our conditioned patterns is through a full, conscious experience of them. We become free of what we're stuck in only through meeting and experiencing it directly. Another term for directly engaging might be called conscious suffering. This involves saying yes to our pain, opening ourselves to it as it is. It doesn't mean I like it, I'm glad it's like this. It just means, yes, this is what is happening. Whatever comes up, you are willing to meet it and have a direct experience of it. For example, if you're hard-hearted, you have a full experience of that. Then you see how acknowledging this affects you and what comes from doing that. Mindfulness, consciousness, awareness. We ride the waves of our feelings rather than becoming submerged in them. It does take an element of conscious awareness and mindfulness to do this. But the thing is that once again, our culture is addicted to being up. The spiritual world is so full of bullshit and spiritual bypassing and ascendance and light. We need the down to come up. We need the down to see the light. We need to love the shit and out of each other. We need to love the hell out of ourselves and one another. We need the down cycles, the falling apart, the chaos, the not knowing, the feeling, all of those dark emotions to see the light. For it's often at the bottom of a down cycle when everything looks totally bleak and miserable, I know that one, that we finally receive a flash of insight that lets us see the hidden contours of some huge ego fixation in which we've been stuck all our life. While the highlands of absolute love are most beautiful, few but the saints can spend their times there. Ultimately, to see fully that the other is not you is the way to realizing oneness. I'm going to repeat that. To see fully that the other is not you is the way to realizing oneness. Nothing is separate, everything is different. Love is the appreciation of difference. I'm going to end with this quote by John Welwood. In the end, to love another requires dropping all our narcissistic agendas, motives, hopes and fears, so that we may look freshly and see the raw other, the sacred other, just as he or she is. This involves a surrender, or perhaps a defeat, but what is defeated is of course the ego and its strategies, clearing the way for the genuine person to emerge, the person who's capable of a real, full spectrum contact. Winning does not tempt that man, for this is how he grows, by being defeated decisively by constantly greater beings. In relationship, it is two partners, greater beings, gradually freeing themselves from the prison of conditioned patterns that brings about this decisive defeat. Then it becomes possible to start encountering each other nakedly, in the open field of nowness, fresh and unfabricated, the field of love, forever vibrating with unimagined possibilities. Wow, that's what I want. That's what I want. To start encountering each other nakedly in the open field of nowness, fresh and unfabricated, the field of love, forever vibrating with unimagined possibilities. Yes, so divine union, yes. Sacred relationship, yes. Transcendent highs, yes. Deepest, darkest shadow and the facing of that, yes. Without which I'm lost in unconscious patterning, and I do not want that. I do not want that. I want to awaken, and it's a challenge. Coming back to the opening quote that my friend Dakini Kamaya gave me this morning, choosing to awaken and be in relationship is the most catalytic experience possible. So I hope that this has provided some inspiration for whoever watches this today or any other day, anyone who is in a relationship, looking for a relationship, has just ended a relationship, trying to understand their relationship, and not just, of course, one that is romantic or sexual in nature. This applies to all relating, because we are all mirrors for one another. We are all mirrors for one another. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any feedback, comments, sharings, aha moments, then do post and let me know. And I also want to thank so much from my heart my beloved Prem, who is my mirror, who is my divine beloved, who is calling me and challenging me to step even more so into my truth, into my clarity, into my awareness, into my honesty, and sort of calling me to up level to an even higher plane of relating and conscious awareness. And this is what I've prayed for, this is what I've asked for. So I am so, so grateful to you, my love. Thank you for watching. Lots of love. Namaste.